For decades, Japanese volleyball struggled to hold international attention, overshadowed by towering competition from Europe and the Americas. Then came Yuji Nishida, an athlete that didn't even meet volleyball height standards, an underdog with no reputation but a cannon for an arm and a monster vertical. Suddenly, stadiums filled, social media buzzed, young players like him felt seen for the first time. Watch closely as we are about to unravel the story of one of, if not the most well-known volleyball player in modern-day history. And to do that, you have to start at the beginning. For Yuji Nishida, everything started in Inabe, Mie Prefecture, a quiet city without elite volleyball systems or the resources of Japan's sporting capitals. Volleyball wasn't just an afterthought in his family, it was a part of life. All his siblings played, and as the youngest, Nishida slipped into the sports almost by default. He officially started playing volleyball at the age of 5, and that early exposure built a sense of belonging. What began as a routine soon became something else. By elementary school, Nishida was already making noise. At 10, he helped his team win the 29th All-Japan Volleyball Tournament in Mie Prefecture. It was a small stage, but the win mattered. He didn't stand out for his height, he stood out for his instincts. Recognition was slow to follow. In a country where opposite hitters often top 1.9 meters, Nishida's growth curve looked average at best. Scouts overlooked him. In their eyes, volleyball at the highest level was a game for the tall, the physically gifted, the ones who fit the mold. Nishida didn't. But those judgments didn't sit with Nishida. He had his own inspiration, a left-handed powerhouse by the name of Kunihiro Shimizu. Shimizu was a two-time Olympian for 2008 and 2012, a multi-time V-League champion with Panasonic Panthers, and a former best scorer at the Asian Championship. He also served as Japan's national team captain and was their primary opposite for nearly a decade. Watching Shimizu dominate as an opposite hitter for Japan's top teams planted a seed in Nishida. He didn't see himself as the odd one out. He saw a path forward. Shimizu became the model, and for Nishida, something to chase. The power, the timing, the killer instinct. It wasn't just admiration, it was ambition. If Shimizu could compete on the Olympic stage, why couldn't he? Still, nothing about Nishida's trajectory would come easily. Japan has a prestigious tradition of powerhouse volleyball high schools, schools like Higashi Fukuoka and Seijo, where top talent competes under the best coaches, often going on to national glory. These were the pipelines for elite players, but Nishida didn't follow the crowd. Instead of joining a proven program, he chose Kaisei High School, an underdog school with no history of national titles in volleyball. Most saw this as a risk. Kaisei didn't offer the prestige or the resources of the big-name schools. But for Nishida, it was never about shortcuts or borrowed reputation. He wanted to prove that success could come from anywhere, and that greatness was about work, not prestige. He made every minute count. Alongside Kaisei, Nishida trained with Verity and Mia, a local under-19 club. He practiced with 3 different teams, chasing as much competition and as many perspectives as possible. By the time he reached the Mie Prefectural High School Championship, Nishida wasn't just fitting in, he was leading. Under his command, Verity and Mia won the under-19 boys division of the Mie Prefecture Young Volleyball Championship, and then a national title. Here was a teenager, still considered undersized for his position, dominating at every level he could reach. There were no spotlights in small-town gyms. National scouts weren't lining the bleachers, but Nishida's edge sharpened in these overlooked places. He studied defenders, read the courts, and built a left-handed swing that turned blockers into bystanders. But the real test was still ahead. At 17, Nishida was about to step into a world where the pace was faster, the hitters taller, pressure relentless. Our protagonist would now enter professional volleyball. Yuji Nishida's first steps onto a professional court weren't marked by fanfare. They were marked by uncertainty. On January 6, 2018, he made his V-League debut for the J-Tech Stings against Osaka Blazers Sakai. The Stings were known for chasing titles, and Nishida was hardly the prototype of an opposite hitter. He was young, untested, and underestimated. The V-League, notorious for its tactical blocking schemes and veteran lineups, wasn't a place that forgave inexperience. Most expected him to blend in, maybe even struggle. Instead, He put up 26 points in his first match. He was no background player, but the focal point of the Sting's attack. Every time he rose above the net, the crowd's expectations shifted. His debut was no fluke, and as the season wore on, Nishida's impact only grew. He finished his rookie campaign not just as a promising newcomer, but as a force teams had to plan around. His efforts earned him the Best New Player award for the 2018-19 V-League season, shared with Issei Otake from the Panasonic Panthers. He also picked up the Best New Player award at the Kurashiki tournament, a nod from another corner of Japanese volleyball that this wasn't a one-off miracle, it was a sign of things to come. There's a moment in every sport when a player's impact moves beyond the box score. With Nishida, it happened fast. His performances became a reference point for what was possible. He was no longer just a promising rookie, he was the player everyone wanted to watch, the one who made every rally feel like it could be history. There was no hesitation in Nishida's arrival on the international stage. On May 25, 2018 in Rouen, France, he pulled on the Japanese national jersey for the first time at the FIVB Volleyball Men's National League. With no gradual introduction, he was in the starting lineup against Australia. A decision like that signaled something rare. The coaching staff didn't just see potential in Nishida, they believed he could transform Japan's hopes. His impact was immediate, and his performances continued to accelerate. Then came a defining moment in 2019. At just 19 years old, Nishida played a pivotal role in Japan's FIVB campaign, helping the team to a 4th place finish, the highest in 28 years. Along the way, he became the youngest player to ever drop 30 points in a match at the World Championship. To those who watched, it felt like he'd torn up the script of what had been possible for Japanese volleyball in modern history. When Nishida was named the tournament's best opposite, it wasn't just a personal accolade, it was proof of a larger shift, a sign that Japan's volleyball legacy, stagnant for decades on the international stage, could still be revived. But carrying the weight of resurgence came with immense pressure. Japan's history with the sport was storied, but distant, highlighted by an iconic gold medal win at the 1972 Munich Olympics. For years, though, it felt like the country had been watching rather than competing on the world stage. As Nishida climbed higher, media coverage around him intensified. He wasn't just playing for his own growth, he was becoming the symbol of a generation intent on bringing Japan back to global relevance. The 2019 Volleyball Nations League became another showcase. Against Bulgaria, Nishida hammered 7 aces in a single match, setting a serving record. It wasn't merely dominance, it was a technical display that reflected the versatility of his game. In moments when momentum was at risk, Nishida's serves became weapons, rattling defenses and swinging games in Japan's favor. Then came the Tokyo Olympics. The weight of expectation wasn't just national, it was personal. Nishida's Olympic debut presented the rarest kind of moment, representing his country on home soil during an event delayed by a global pandemic. In the men's volleyball tournament, Nishida stood out, becoming the first player in the men's division to surpass 30 points in a single match during the rally scoring era. His 105 total points across the tournament, which is an insane number, is clear proof he could carry his team, even under immense scrutiny. Japan finished 7th, their best Olympic result in 29 years. Nishida wasn't satisfied, but the significance wasn't lost on those who witnessed it. His presence alone had reignited excitement for a sport that had been long seen as secondary to Japan's larger international pursuits. Beyond the court, Nishida's influence was harder to measure, but impossible to miss. Social media profiles, fan clubs, and even comparisons to fictional characters like Shoi Hinata from the anime Haikyuu linked him to Japan's cultural consciousness. These comparisons weren't just playful, they reflected the way the public resonated with Nishida's story. Like Hinata, Nishida was a player who didn't fit the mold, who took his size deficit and turned it into an advantage. To younger players, Nishida became proof that volleyball in Japan had a new face, and he didn't have to look like 6'8" towering figures dominating Europe and the Americas. Nishida's presence grew even more. He built a YouTube channel with 500,000 subs that offered a glimpse behind the scenes. He didn't hide from the spotlight, he even used to say that he wanted to share his journey. and people listened. His approachability and honesty set him apart in a sports culture that often kept its stars at a distance. But Nishida never saw himself as just an individual icon. His rise came alongside a supporting cast that was equally determined to change the narrative. Players like Yuki Ishikawa and Run Takahashi formed a trio with Nishida that embodied synergy. They didn't rely solely on isolated brilliance. Instead, their combined effort became the foundation of Japan's sharp, fast-paced playing style that left stronger, taller teams scrambling to keep up. The evolution of Japan's volleyball brought stadiums to life. Any match that even mentioned Japan was surging in viewership. For the first time in decades, the stands were overflowing with young fans, many there just to see Nishida in action. Each time he leapt into the air for a blistering spike or fired an ace that sent the crowd into chaos, it wasn't just points being scored, it was belief being restored. But every ascent brings new challenges. For Nishida, the next step would take him far from home, into a league where the rules and rhythms were different, and where the obstacles would test him in ways he could have never imagined. But before we get to that, I've been scripting this for the past 3 weeks. Research, editing, planning, I'm tired. I'm really new to this space, so this really puts a load on me. So I would absolutely appreciate you guys supporting me by subscribing. We are so close to 1K subscribers, and we might even pass it by the time this is out, but please continue with the support. Turn on post notifications and stick around for a while with me. And I assure you, I will be consistent on uploads. Lots of milestones ahead of us, and who knows, you might be my day ones when this whole thing goes well for me. And I will remember you. All right, enough talk. Let's get back to it. Yuji Nishida's move to Volley Calipo for the 2021-2022 Serie A season marked a new test. On August 9th, 2021, he left Japan and stepped into the heart of Italy's top league, a place where every match demanded more than raw talent. The early days hinted at promise. Even in training, teammates and coaches noticed his speed, his vertical, his ability to find angles and strategize on spot. Italian fans were curious. Could a 21-year-old from Japan deliver against Europe's best? There was belief. But barely weeks into his Serie A campaign, that momentum came to a grinding halt. In April 2021, during a team scrimmage, Nishida suffered a left ankle sprain. It was the kind of injury that could derail momentum before it even builds. He sat out, watching as his new team adjusted to the demands of the league without him. The timing could not have been any worse. Just as he was learning the rhythm of the Italian game, he was forced to pause. He returned, determined to regain form, but in November, a calf injury struck. 2 layoffs, months apart, each one chipping away at his sense of progress. This absolutely crushed him, mentally and physically. But that wasn't the end for him. Because after returning from that ankle injury, Nishida re-entered the lineup, determined to regain his rhythm. But no sooner was he finding that his calf gave out, sidelining him once again. These back-to-back injuries were more than physical hurdles, they were mental trials. Nishida found himself in uncharted territory, far from home, isolated in a country where cultural and language barriers added layers of difficulty to an already grueling situation. His rehabilitation process was slow and methodical. But between the gym sessions and physical therapy, another challenge loomed: doubt. For once in his life, Nishida couldn't rely on his sheer athleticism or his devastating power. He had to evolve. The adjustments came incrementally. He focused on timing, adjusting his approach to overcome blockers faster than he ever had. He worked on his angles, refining the deceptive precision that had served him well in Japan. Slowly, the pieces of his game began to mold into something deadly. January 12, 2022. Mostly healthy, Nishida returned to the court and delivered a performance that answered every question about his place in Italy. Against Monza, he scored 29 points. It wasn't just the volume, but the variety. Powerful swings, clever tips, and a serve that was an absolute weapon. In that same stretch, he set a Serie A record with 8 aces in a single match. The numbers told their own story. He could not only compete, but dominate even after months of rehab and recalibration. Who does this? By the end of the season, Nishida had rebuilt himself. Physically, he was strong. Tactically, he was sharper. He'd earned respect in one of volleyball's toughest leagues, not through flash, but through persistence and evolution. The injuries that sidelined him had forced him a kind of growth that raw talent alone couldn't even offer. He later returned to Japan in 2022, and that's where the story shifts. Because for Nishida, the next question wasn't about recovery. It was about what it means to define greatness on your own terms, beyond just sport. Over time, Nishida became more than just a player, and it became really solidified when his story took an entirely new dimension. On December 31st, 2022, he married Sarina Koga, captain of Japan's women's national volleyball team. The relationship was more than just a headline. These are two athletes at the top of their game, navigating long distance, packed schedules, and the constant pressure of elite sport. They understood the grind. They shared the setbacks and the small victories. For Nishida, it meant learning to balance ambition with perspective, knowing that legacy isn't built in isolation. He became the players others looked up to in tense moments, not because he demanded it, but because he earned it. His presence on the court signaled composure. His teammates trusted his decisions. Opponents respected his unpredictability. The leadership wasn't loud. It was measured, consistent, and rooted in a way that he played the game. He made it clear that greatness could come from anywhere, in any form. And as the sports continued to evolve, Nishida's example stood as a reminder. What matters most isn't where you start or even how high you jump, but how far you're willing to push the limits of expectation. After Paris 2024, Yuji Nishida shocked fans by announcing he would take a break from the national team to recover from chronic injuries and mental fatigue. His absence left a vacuum, but his comeback was equally telling. In April 2025, newly appointed coach Laurence Tilly included Nishida in the 43-man preliminary squad for VNL, suggesting his role will be carefully managed, with Tiang Ying off weeks and readiness in focus. Looking back, few athletes define an era like he's done. In 2024, he led Japan to its first ever VNL silver, a watershed moment that ended a nearly 50-year drought. And he did it while balancing Olympic prep and club commitments. Nishida's image now embodies modern Japanese sports identity. He is what volleyball needed to bounce back into global relevance, bringing new fans to the sport and igniting a global movement. In fact, my first exposure to volleyball was actually through him. I just happened to see his clips hanging in the air for an absurd amount of time before baptizing the ball in pure violence. I couldn't get enough of his sheer power and jump and finesse. I mean, Nishida Airlines was just peak volleyball for me, and one of the most satisfying things to watch. I hope the next time we see him on that stage, he comes back smashing aces multiple times in a row like he always does when he debuts. He did announce he will be playing in the next Olympics, which is a bit too long for comfort. I don't know where we will see him elsewhere, but I know this. I'll be watching. And if you made it this far, maybe you will be too. Drop your favorite Nishida moments in the comments. Let's talk about it, because players like this don't come around often. And when they do, they remind you why you fell in love with the game in the first place. Thank you for sticking around till the end. Let me know who you want to do next. Alright, peace out.